Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of The Players Are Loud. Today we got another amazing artist and musician. Aaron Cox is in the virtual house with us today. And Aaron is, man, he is an incredible, prolific singer, songwriter. He plays so many different instruments, I can't even keep up. He's so talented. And in my opinion, one of Nashville's finest gems as far as artists go, and I've been lucky enough to know him for many years and been working with him on his own shows, and just so glad you could be here, Aaron. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Absolutely, glad to do it.
So you are on actually my favorite song on this new album, The World Is Loud, and there's quite an interesting evolution to this song that I wanted to give a little bit of backstory to, but the song is called The Locust. And back before this album really was officially kind of in a vision state, you and I were connecting on, some possible collaborative stuff with songwriting. We talked about starting a project together. We got off to a little bit of a start, but then, life is what happens when you have something else planned. And so I wanted to just kind of quickly tell the story behind the song, and then just get into more of specifically what's been happening with you and what's going on with you. But those of you that hear this particular song on the record, the sort of improvisational, ad-libby kind of ethereal vocal stuff that's at the beginning of the song and throughout, I think the first and second verse, that's Aaron singing. And Aaron is, oh gosh, man, you're such an amazing singer.
Thanks,
when we first got together, I think I had a riff that was on the piano in 7, and we were just like messing around with different melodies, and I had a SM57 microphone. I put it in your hands, and you just started improvising. And it was incredible, and the feel, just the sound of it was incredible. Well, that was kind of the end of it.
Right.
we didn't connect again, and
that was our entire collaboration.
Yeah. So we have this long-standing, hour-long history of working together on Right Now. That's not entirely true, but
we had a lot more planned that we were wanting to do. But that,
yeah, we did. And so
I was glad for what we did.
So months went by, and I dare say years. Maybe almost 2 years went by.
Yeah, I think so.
Before that song, I continued on it, and ultimately what ended up happening is, some people know from listening to some of the other episodes, originally I was going to be just hiring hand-picked vocalists, you being one of them, to sing on a portion of the tunes, and also hiring guitar players to play on them as well. Fast forward to when the album really, started to take shape, and I had time and momentum to work on it. That all changed, and I, based on the encouragement of some folks, very gracious encouragement, after doing pre-production vocals, ended up keeping those, and that ended up being the main vocals for the record. But when this song, The Locust, was constructed, the stuff you did could not be left behind. And so this really was an opportunity to still have you be a part of this song, and just keep the spirit of our collaboration before before there were any lyrics written or anything. It was just so cool. But can you just, I don't want to say too much, because I want people to check this out, and I want them to hear it. But can you just talk a little bit about what was happening in that just one session we did together, and then just kind of what you went on to do after that? Because obviously we got separated by other distractions and stuff.
Right. Yeah. And at the time, even at that time, there was so much going on. You know, we were wanting to get together and do all kinds of stuff and, you know, write this out. Yeah. And I just was fortunate enough to be able to be there. I think I was coming for some other reason. I feel like maybe you were rehearsing, we were doing something.
Yeah.
And I loved that song. You said, let me show you this little thing I'm doing. I didn't know what it was going to sound like. I didn't know what vibe it was. I knew you said you were wanting to do more of a rock thing, which I thought was awesome, because I've been like, so I first met you, or I've first heard you doing your band thing, I think at Douglas Corner or somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Incredible.
Yeah.
You know, and it was I already knew Mike Whitaker, and so he was playing with you, and it was just probably one of the most memorable experiences, definitely at a local Nashville show ever.
Oh, thank you so much. And just really quick, Douglas Corner was a true music listening venue that unfortunately is no longer with us, because I think unfortunately the pandemic did its damage. But yeah, that was a great place for people to play. And
it was awesome. And in fact, yeah, it was so cool because I don't know, it might have been 5 years later or something that we did that show where you were playing with me, and it was and you'd helped put together the band and all this stuff, which was absolutely it was a dream come true. I thought about it when I was on the stage, just thinking, man, I was sitting here listening to you play, thinking, I didn't even know where you're from. I didn't know if you lived here. I didn't know anything. I was just like, this dude is the most amazing musician.
Oh, man. Well, and you're kind to say that, but I do want to say now, you just reminded me of the Douglas Corner show, which was an instrumental show back then. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to be a part of your vocal bass thing, because sometimes that stuff, it's interesting. We talked in another interview about people sort of categorizing musicians based on their first impression of what they hear. And we were talking. I was talking with another player the other day about how sometimes it's the unfortunate challenge of being pigeonholed sometimes as being certain genre specific type of player. Right. But man, you were always so gracious in recognizing that myself and Mike and some of these other players, we loved doing things outside of that. That was a fun, absolutely musical release. But so that was amazing to do that show with you.
And that was the thing for me. Like, I was super inspired years and years ago, because I'm a drummer. I love all genres. Jazz was kind of the main thing growing up, but then got into singer songwriter stuff, and I got into some rock stuff when I was a teenager. That I didn't. First it was more the jazz. Then my friends were showing me Incubus, and I accidentally ended up at a concert at like a big music festival, and it was so amazing. And I was just like, this is so cool. And so to boomerang back to our session, that song, actually, when I first heard the riff, it was piano and stuff, but it made me feel a little bit like some like Incubus stuff, or maybe Morning View or something, that just took me back to there. And I was like, this is kind of the mixture of the jazz music, because the reason actually this is funny. This is a little in-between story. When I was like 13, I was one of those just jerk musicians that had decided that jazz was it and rock was stupid. And it was that show, that Incubus show, where I heard them doing all these like jazz interludes and stuff in between and this cool stuff, and then just kicking butt the whole show with the rock stuff. And it changed my world, because I'm just like 13 years old. So when I was in the studio with you and you showed me that riff, it took me back to that, because I was like, for one thing, it's like it's in 7/8, it's like 7/8 time, and it's got this just rock feel, but it's obviously got, it's you. So there's going to be depth, there's going to be jazz stuff. And my whole idea with my own music and getting you and Mike and different people, for me, I was super inspired by, it's like 3 stories in one. I was like super inspired years and years ago when I saw Sting when he first came out of the Police. I wasn't there, but the video of that sort of a documentary. And he put together all these jazz players that were actually big name jazz players at the time. I don't know if you ever saw that documentary. I can't remember what it's called.
Absolutely, man.
And,
he really changed the, in my opinion, he really changed the fabric of what pop music could be.
Yeah.
And, although it's not like genres weren't being blended before, but like you said, by bringing the jazz royalty into the band and not just the jazz genre per se,
right,
all of a sudden it brings about this manifestation of like total legitimacy in the colliding of these different worlds, because culturally there's a different history between Sting and each of these musicians, and so cool. That's a great example.
Absolutely. So that was just one of those things, and I think I might have been 20 when I saw that. So it was a long time ago, but it stuck with me forever. And I just thought it was awesome. And so somewhere in me, I was always like, whenever I do my band thing, I want to have guys that are just like off the chains. They can play jazz and play all these different kinds of stuff. And so that was a dream, again, a dream come true for me, playing like with you at Douglas Corner and doing all that. So when you asked me here's the funny thing about that, is when you said, hey, I want to do a project, I want you to do some singing and writing, it's going to be rock, like kind of almost metalish rock inspired. I don't know exactly what you call the genre.
Yeah.
I was just like, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then to come to find out that you just love that so much. And so anyway, like I said, it's like 3 stories in one. So I'm wrapping back around. So we were in the studio, and you played that riff, and I went back to that like kind of Incubus, just when I first fell in love with rock and decided that it wasn't stupid music.
Yeah.
I loved it before that.
Sure.
It's awesome. It sucks. It's like 13. And I fell in love with it again. And I don't know, I just got in this zone. And I just started doing some like harmonies, and because he threw the mic in front of me, I didn't even know what was going on. He just like, sing something. Okay. And I got in that zone and did some layers, and it just felt natural. It felt right. And I loved it. I didn't know I had no idea what you were going to turn it into later.
It's so cool. And again, just crediting you for so much of the inspiration of the vibe that ultimately grew out of that. I mean, what the listeners have to understand is like, when I handed you this microphone, it's like we're sitting in front of speakers. I mean, from a recording engineering perspective, you would never do master tracking in that way.
Right.
But those are the exact tracks that I ended up putting into the tune, because that's all I had.
Right.
And it's a testament to how amazing a singer you are, because even with this handheld mic, which is most often probably used in front of guitar amps and on snare drums, I mean, here it was, you singing, had no problem shaping that and fitting it into everything else and editing into the tune. But it's amazing how, the inspiration, you can't just take for granted. You're going to have time to get your studio all set up, turn on the computer, get all your perfect sounds, get compression set for the vocal and all that stuff. When inspiration hits, it hits, and you got to, advice to aspiring musicians out there. It's like, you need to be ready at all times, because us creatives and the way our brains work, which is a blessing and a curse, but the way it works, it's like, if you don't have something to capture that fleeting moment of inspiration, it might be gone forever. And I couldn't even count the number of ideas I've lost from just not being prepared to put things down. And, you get over the regret of it. But so many players I talk to can relate to that. It's like, man, I had this idea and now it's gone.
That's absolutely true. And sometimes even the performance itself, even if you are able to capture the idea. Yeah. I tell you what, some people they call it demoitis, and there is a truth to that sometimes. But I'm telling you, there's some stuff that I've even on my own record. I think the first record I did, where I ended up keeping the what do you call it, the scratch vocal, and it was before the part was even really written yet, so some of it was kind of like mumbling lyrics and all this kind of stuff, and tried to redo it, tried to sing it the same way. I thought it was going to be better. I was like, it was like a year later, it's going to be better, you know, I'm a better singer now, I'm a better, you know. Didn't have.
Isn't that amazing, man?
It was, and it wasn't set up sound wise very well,
right,
but we used it anyway.
Yeah. It's amazing how the idea, like the psychology or the mentality of, hey, I'm just laying down this scratch. Like there's a few things going on. One, there's no pressure, right? So the pressure's taken off of you.
Right.
Number two, you're not splitting your consciousness between wondering if, you know, you're singing loud enough or soft enough, or if the sound coming back in your ears is good enough. It takes away all of the expectation and the pressure of a performance. And ironically, that is for a lot of players, myself included, when you're the most free in terms of your expression.
Yeah.
Because a lot of, you might be able to relate to this too. I can remember on sessions when I started doing them, I had that red light phobia, you know, like things would feel great. Like the musicians might be in the room and we're rehearsing, you know, through the chart or whatever. Everything feels awesome. Okay, we're rolling, you know, from the control room. And then all of a sudden I'm tense, you know, and and that worked against me. And
same here.
I had to learn how to embrace and have the expectation of the feeling of the being under the gun with the red light. And after a while you get used to that and then you relax in that. But it's so interesting. And what you're saying is just exactly mirrors that. It's like, you know, if the best take was the one that wasn't recorded the best way, maybe you need to figure out a way to make that work instead of being so dead set on redoing it. But it's really cool. Right. Man, I don't want to go too much farther without singing the praises of your music and what you're doing. And I think that my first exposure to your music was the Wonder album, right? Wouldn't that have been the first sort of finished thing that I heard from you?
Recorded music, I think so. I think I gave you my first, it's a funny story. I gave you my first EP.
Okay.
And my imagination told me that you went, I'm just kidding. Who? What? I'm just kidding.
No. If you mean I threw it away, absolutely not.
Totally kidding. No, as many people as have given me their CDs and stuff, I've got literally a trunk full of like 15, 20 CDs that I've never listened to. But I didn't know you. You didn't know me. Yeah. I was just, when I went to your show, I was like, man, this is this. I just wanted to give you my CD.
Yeah.
And so it was not long after that, maybe like a year after that, that I think we met again at that Oasis Church. It was like a Christmas.
Oh yeah, that's
thing
right.
That Mike put together, that Woody put together.
I remember that.
And you were like in the house band, and I did this little acoustic thing.
Yeah.
This weird arrangement of, actually, I've got that it's on iTunes now. I finally ended up recording that.
Cool.
And it was just What Child Is This?
And
you just came up to me afterwards, and this was like, this for me was the nerd fan, the geek fan moment. Truthfully, I'm not gonna lie, because I played that song. You came up to me afterwards and were like, dude, and I didn't even know if you remembered who I was ever, you know, because I'd just seen you in passing and at your show and stuff. And you were like, you know, you just said some really awesome things that and compared me to a couple of people that I, you know, idolized, that were some of the reasons, you know, that I started doing it as far as singing and whatnot. And you were just really, you were enthused, and I was like,
yeah,
no,
I remember that. I remember that distinctly, and I was blown away.
Dope.
And just to back up a little bit, because I don't want anybody to think that I dissed a person giving me a CD. I did listen to your EP, and I was impressed with your EP.
You did.
Yes, But at the time, kind of what was going on was, and I can't remember, like, if you handed it to me because you were trying to get players together to possibly play the music. I can't remember what.
This is before that.
Okay. So Mike had told me about you, Mike Whitaker, who we also have another interview with in this series as well. He was the first person to tell me about you, and he he kind of described you, and I'm paraphrasing. It's kind of like, yeah, man, there's this kid, this like snotty nosed kid. He didn't say snotty nosed kid, but, like this, he was like painting you in this picture of like, you were like a toddler or something, just like, and he's got a lot of talent, man. He's hearing him sing, and, he's putting together songs and stuff like that. So it was you were kind of presented to me as someone who was just still formulating sort of who you were and what you were doing. So when you handed me the EP, I kind of had this expectation of like, oh, okay, this is going to be, this will be demo-ish, kind of thing, right? And so when I listened to it, I was like, oh, okay, this kid is talented. but I was still like, what's he doing? And forgive me, because I don't remember the songs that were on that.
Dude,
this was a long time ago.
This was maybe in the neighborhood of 10 years ago. So okay. Yeah.
So it was a while back. So I was impressed, but there was no like, there wasn't an opportunity, like there was no momentum there where like I ran into you again or or you were on a session. So it was literally one of those things. Was like I played, I was like, man, this kid's good, and it left a totally positive impression on me. But then I didn't have any interaction with you.
Oh, that's so then funny. When I didn't even know if you listened to it because you didn't know me. I was just a fan who gave me the CD at a show.
Because I didn't know you, I wasn't really chasing you down or
of course.
In contact or whatever.
It all makes sense now.
But then when you've kind of crystallized the aha of it all, because when I saw you at the Christmas show and I got to see you do your thing, it was like, oh, Mike had reminded, hey, this is that, he reminded me who you were. And then I got to be right there. And then I was like, man, okay. Because there's something to seeing, you have to admit, like there's one thing when you hear a recording of someone and it can leave a, incredible lasting impression on you, but there's a whole nother side to seeing someone in person and experiencing the communicative nature of their music right then and there. And that's why I really, everything I told you was sincere. I wanted to go out of my way to let you know, man, you're so gifted and we get to work together.
That was truly the moment where like, I think for the rest of the week, I was just like, I can't believe it.
Oh,
Adam really loves my music.
No, man, you shouldn't have been surprised. And
it was so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. So yeah, that was awesome. And then I think what happened. So I moved to South Africa just a couple of years after that. Maybe we talked. I saw you at a show here and there. Maybe whatever. I came and heard you again. Maybe just doing the jazz stuff around town. I'm sure. And said hi. And then I was gone for a couple of years. Came back and handed you a CD. And that was Wonder. And that brought us to that point, and I think I wrote my number on it or something. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think you had my number before that.
Man,
and you texted me and I was like,
everybody out there has to go after watching this interview and you have to go pick up Wonder. That is in my humble opinion, that is a landmark recording, man. It's you, Aaron, one of the things about him, and so my first impression of you, of course, was as a vocalist. That was that was the first thing that I was hearing from you, essentially, was your identity as a vocalist.
Well, plus it was I was doing like a cover or Christmas stuff. Yeah. So,
but what I didn't realize was how talented you were at playing guitar, playing drums. And again, I'm I'm not too proud to admit, I fell into the same, scenario that I was mentioning earlier about how easy it is. Our human nature is to sort of like, we get a first impression, sort of like if we're not interacting with that musician or getting a chance to experience them regularly, that's sort of like your lasting impression. So in my mind, you're like singer-songwriter guy.
Right.
Because that was my first impression of you. But oh my gosh, what finally getting to do the show with you and listening intently to the music and learning parts and all that, I got to learn more about your genius and you are one of those rare cats that whatever you pick up, you're able to make music with, and it becomes an extension of your expression. It's a legitimate extension. It's not a hack job. And that I've always, there was an interview, Michaela Compton just did recently a radio interview for 89.5 in Tupelo, Mississippi. And when she was kind to go through every single song. I got to tell the story behind all the songs. And I was telling her in that interview how much I looked up to you as like a complete musician and just a great example from where I'm standing of it's just a source of creativity, no matter what it is you're working on. So, man, continual kudos to you for what you do. And
thank you, man. That means
man, I can't wait to, you need to tell us what you've been doing. And cause I can't wait to hear the next thing that you're doing.
Well, I'm just, for one thing, first, I would just want to say thank you so much. And I'm just happy to be able to make music and to do it at all and to channel what I'm getting, I feel like how it is. We're not just, we can't really take credit for all of this. We're channeling what we get and hopefully are able to put in enough time and practice and strategy and experience to do it until it feels like it actually sounds like what we heard in our heads. And that takes a long, long time.
Yeah,
and a lot of mistakes and years of being like, so that's kind of how I feel about everything I do. It's like, just get it to the place to where it sounds like it sounded when I heard it in my head. And everything is like that. And so, and I would just want to say that that's why I love hearing your album now. God, it's so good. I've listened to it 3 times. And I just got it in the mail. What was it? Like 4 or 5 days ago. And I've listened to it 3 times straight. And in the course of like 2 days, and I'm going to listen to it again. I can't wait. That is also one of my favorite songs. I tell you what,
thank you.
I love that song, The Locust, and the whole album is awesome. It's incredible. It's almost more of like, I don't know. It's got vibes that I really like from different things. What would you say is the genre? What are you calling it as the main genre?
I don't know. I almost don't feel qualified anymore to call out genres, because now there's all these words. Like if you look at music, music library access, Spotify and iTunes and everything, you look at their genres and subgenres. It's just like, wow, stuff there I've never even heard of. I just call it a modern rock album. Some people call it a prog rock album. There's no question you can hear, a lot of the influences from when I was coming up as a player, but it's, I don't know what to call it.
Man, it's really cool. It sounds like one of the cooler things that I would hear, played on maybe the Rocket or something, but that I'm like, oh, that's cool. Cause I'm not a huge rock, like I don't listen to rock a lot anymore or in general, but when I do, it's something that's really, really sticks out to me. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I love I love soul stuff. I love all kinds of stuff, you know, I love everything. Yeah. Rock for me, it's gotta be good.
Yeah, I agree.
And yours is awesome and it's incredible. But something about it, I think the first track I was listening and I was thinking, man, for some reason it almost reminds me like this. I don't know if it's the writing, this production, the singing, some kind of strange combination. I was like, this sounds like if Peter Gabriel was like mixed with, I don't know, like Alice in Chains or something. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like there's something really cool. I don't know.
Seriously. I love that. It's so fun.
It was awesome.
It's so fun as an artist. I know you can relate to this, to when you share something with someone, just to hear what does it bring to mind for them. Everybody's
right.
Everybody's got
it's hilarious sometimes.
A different perspective. And what I'm learning even more now that I never really thought about before, listeners will, they may put it into a particular category, have a certain perception on a genre or a band that it reminds them of. But, as a lyricist, isn't it incredible how people can interpret lyrics in different ways?
Yes.
Which I think is great, honestly, because it makes it relatable to that many more people.
Yes.
And when I listen to your music, man, you are an amazing lyricist. And
thank you, man.
Where does that come from, man? I mean, you have this uncanny way of taking a really heavy experience or a really heavy spiritual concept and putting it into language that it just pulls anybody in. I mean, where in the world did that come from? Is it divinely inspired? Are you inspired lyrically by other writers? I mean, it's on a whole nother level.
That's an interesting question. Thanks. I'm glad that it's successful in doing that, because that means a lot to know that you communicated. That's huge for me. Not even as like a compliment to artistry as much as I mean, I know you're saying that too, but which is awesome. But for me, just to hear that, that it worked, it's great. Because to answer your question, I don't know. With my music, anything I can definitely say, my singing, these are my favorite singers. I'm kind of a combination of this and this and this and this and this. Same thing with the tracks. You know how it is. I can say this track might be a favorite, this, and I can definitely know where certain influences come from with that. Lyrically, I don't have anything. I don't have anybody that I can think of. I've got people who are who I'm inspired by their lyrics because of the depth of it, maybe because of what it said and meant to me. And then there's people who I just love their style of writing lyrically. But I don't know if any of it specifically, if I pull from any of it. But what I do know is that I'll have an idea, a melody, it'll come, whether it comes like in a dream or it comes just at a certain, point when you're mowing the lawn or whatever, and it just happens, right? And you capture that melody and you get it, and it's sitting there for a long time. A lot of people maybe go and say, okay, I'm going to finish that song now. And if they can and it works, then great. Like I think I heard John Mayer say that, like, if he ever gets a melody or gets a song, his main thing is just don't stop, just finish the song right then, which is awesome. Because I mean, his obviously his songwriting is fantastic, and that's never been my situation. And part of that's probably been because of the fact that I've been often, I'll have these ideas when I was like at a day job that I was at, when I was younger and had started writing. I was like waiting tables and something. You can't do that. Like running off in the bathroom,
Right.
So that stuff, it might sit for years and years. You know how it is. But a certain melody would have a feeling to it. It would have a vibe to it. And I would think I can't put any lyrics to this unless it matches the emotion of the music. And it's got to be, for me, I always have wanted to write about things that were like the most important thing that happened to me in my life that year, or that, as far as spiritually, or just what I've learned, for me, it's just, if I'm going to write something, I want it to be very, not necessarily deep for the idea of deep, but deep for the idea of, it's going to mean a lot.
Yeah.
It's got to make a difference it's got to make as much of a difference for the person listening as whatever I'm writing about made for me when I realized it, or when it was something that God was showing me, teaching me.
Yeah.
Whatever that was so important to my life, hang on a second. Decline.
All of a sudden you're on stage. Oh, there you are.
Somebody talking about something that I don't care about. Just kidding. Yeah, no. And so that was my goal. I started writing, I moved to Nashville to be a drummer. That's what I wanted to do. And when I started doing my own music, it was because I wanted to say something that was going to be really, really important. And without that, I didn't care about doing it. That's why I had to learn how to sing. I wasn't actually a good singer. I couldn't sing very well at all when I was like 17, 18. I had to become singing wise to the level of what I felt like I would think was good if I was listening to somebody else.
Sure.
And so my standard was really high as far as like as a musician, because that's, I'd spent my whole life trying to be really, really, really good at drums, practicing. And so I was like, I can't like half-ass the singing thing. So I just I spent, hours. And it's a funny story. When I was like 18, 19, none of my songs were finished. They were just all little ideas that nobody had ever heard them, really. It was a secret. It was between me and God and me. And it was, and I still had a little cassette recorder. I was still using that at the time.
Nice.
And yeah, I was doing gigs, playing drums and bass, actually, for a couple of artists. And I was just making a little bit. I was making enough to just pay a few bills, but not a lot, what I mean? And not enough to pay like rent and cover everything else. So I actually moved out of the house that I was in, because I was gonna have to like get another job, or I was actually ended up quitting a job that was a day job. I said, I can't do this. I had a day job, and then I had these weekend gigs. I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm paying for something that I don't care about, living in this house, and I was spending all my time in the car anyway, trying to learn how to sing, because nobody wanted to listen to me learn how to sing in the house. It's funny, it was a house full of drummers in the studio, and so they were always bringing in awesome singers to come in and sing in the studio, and I said, I can't do this. Yeah. So I would stay in my van for hours. That was my van. It's my first car, bought from my grandparents. And so eventually
all of your singing rehearsal was done in a van.
Yes.
That's incredible.
And that was your practice room. So what?
That was your practice room.
It's my practice room out of necessity, because it was that bad.
That's so cool.
And so yeah, I stopped. I quit the job and moved out. I got somebody to fill my lease with the guy. And I decided I'm going to it was almost a year when I was 19. I think I was 19. It was a year after I'd moved to Nashville to play drums. And I spent almost a year in that van, 8 hours a day, like a day job.
Wow.
Practicing singing and finishing my songs.
Wow.
And trying to also get good enough at guitar to where I could play, because a lot of the chords and stuff I was having to make up, because I'd hear them in my head. It's like, I don't know exactly what that is, so I'd sort of make it up, and it was weird. So I had to learn how to do all that and get it at least to the standard that was close to what I felt like was what I would expect if it was an artist I was playing for or something like that. I didn't want it to be way less, So
was the van just parked in the driveway or something? Or
no, I had I parked a lot in the Opry Mills Mall parking lot, because they had a lot of shade. It was really hot. Yeah. Okay. And also it was huge, so it could be far enough away to where even if the windows are like cracked or whatever, if I was singing really loud, the people aren't going to hear me. They might hear it a little bit, but they wouldn't know where it was coming from or what it
Man,
was.
I'm loving this. I'm loving this concept of imagery. That's really cool, man. Never heard anybody say that before.
Well,
that you had a mobile practice room and you just take it where you could go, and
yeah, exactly.
guitar,
And
vocals, and writing. All
it was quite an experience. I took the seats out and put a little like love seat couch in there. It was funny.
Was it a passenger van? Like what kind of minivan? What was it?
Like a Plymouth Voyager.
Wow. Okay.
It's like a 96 Plymouth Voyager, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was seriously the start of my stuff was that. And that's how I began. And then, but anyway, all of that's, I'm sorry, this is like a massively ADD train of thought. But it is to answer the question about the lyrics. Again, I decided to do it. I remember there was a certain time when I was sitting there and I had finished the first song that I actually finished. And I recorded myself on just that tape doing it after I'd finally gotten it down, right? We were practicing it for a few months, finally got it just down. And I listened back to it and something hit me and it was just like, you got to do this. And it was because of the lyrics. It was really because what the lyrics meant to me.
Wow.
And I said, I feel like this is something that I'm supposed to do. I don't care about just being an artist for being an artist. I don't just want to be on stage and sing and just do this. That's great. A lot of there's amazing artists that I absolutely love listening to and or even playing for and stuff that are very much just great entertainers and all this kind of stuff that do their thing. But for me, it was, and by the way, the reason I say this is because there's been different situations where people have, record deals have almost happened and they try to change it and like, let's make it more of this and more of that. And I was like, I don't have a problem with this or that. I like this or that, but I don't care to do it. I would rather play drums for an artist that does this or that because I really love playing drums. But if I'm going to do my stuff, it needs to be this.
Yeah, that's great.
And because this is the only reason that I'm really doing my stuff is because I want it to really be able to express this stuff that I feel so has been such a huge thing in my life that God has put in my heart and put in my life and my experiences that I got to share that with people. And I feel like it's got to be shared in the way and produced musically in the way that matches that just matches what I'm saying.
Yeah.
However, that being said, ironically, like I said earlier, it doesn't start with the lyrics first. It starts with the music first. The lyrics later will catch up and find a place. And it'll just be that one line where the melody is doing this certain thing and it feels really emotional. It feels like it's got to be something important. It feels like but I can't think of anything to say there. I would try to think of something to say that sounded like it would work or be good, and it just was never enough. And then all of a sudden, maybe 2 years later, 3 years later, I'd go through some kind of very intense experience in life, and maybe learn some very important life lesson that just I had to go through that to learn that.
Man, I can relate to that so much, for sure.
Wow. Right. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, this has happened so many times. I'm telling you, a melody that I hadn't heard that I'd written, that I'd recorded on a tape or whatever, been sitting around for a couple of years, hadn't listened to it in years. Right as I'm thinking about what I've been going through and what I felt like I'm learning from it. And I'm just having that kind of moment, that sort of aha moment, that melody would pop into my head. That happened with that song, Just Let It Go. I remember specifically. I was like, that melody just popped into my head, and that I had remembered a couple of years before trying to think of some lyric to put on that melody.
Wow.
And it just never seemed like it was good enough, whatever. And so I just left it alone. All of a sudden I'm thinking about what's going on in my life, and I get this, this kind of an epiphany about what to do. And that melody pops in my head again from back then, and just let it go. Just let it go. Oh my gosh. That's the one. That's
Very
it.
cool.
Then it came together. Then the song, then writing the verse, writing the chorus, all that happens in the course of a day or so after that. Because it's just like, bam.
That's amazing. So, do you feel as a writer that your best work is born out of hardship and trial, or do you think that that's just one example of where inspiration comes from? I mean, I sometimes I feel like it's I don't know, the most honest or the deepest musical ideas. What lyrics are not. Lyrics are just music. Oftentimes for me are just born out of having to go through a tough situation. Do you feel like that?
Yeah, I do. I really do. I'm trying to think, like, I think almost everything that I've written about that I care about came from a tough situation.
Mm.
And, even the good stuff, even the happy stuff ends up coming from a tough situation that gets resolved.
Yeah.
And then that turns into a song. That's like, I just think, why? Why do you think that is? I think it's just because of the level of emotion those are the only times when you feel something so strongly that music is the only way that you can really connect with yourself.
Right.
Right.
That's great. I mean, I think about this a lot. It's we can't go through a life interacting with people constantly and always just wear our emotions are on our sleeves, right?
Right.
That's in our culture. People kind of look down on that. It's sort of looked down upon as either a weakness or an annoyance. And it's like hey, how are you doing, Jim? Oh, I'm doing great. How are you doing? It's more that's more of the syntax of introduction in our culture than it is true question of hey, how you doing, Jim? Well, let's see, I'm struggling with my marriage. My house is on the thing, and then I went to the doctor. It's like they maybe didn't want to hear that right all at once. It's
right.
So from the day to day, it's like it's not even that we're trying to escape it necessarily. It's just that it's like there's a time and a place to be able to kind of open up. And it seems like with music, that is a really appropriate place to be able to stop, take a breath, open up, and channel these things and express them. And because for a lot of artists, myself included, it's like if I'm not necessarily great at being transparent with emotions and just speaking to someone, but it's a lot easier for me to channel that through music. And if I don't have that, it's like a pressure cooker that just keeps building, right? And it's like it has to be expressed in some way.
Yeah,
and that's a creative and positive way to express.
I feel like is very positive, and that's something I was thinking about just recently. Is a lot of times, obviously, we've learned things that are true about your thinking and your speaking that are important, like the law of attraction, and just in general, like negativity. You don't want to think about a lot of negative stuff. You don't want to think, whether it's the law of attraction, the Bible. It's every psychologist or any religion always talks about the same thing. You don't want to focus on negative things. You want to focus on positive things. You don't want to say negative things. You want to say positive things. So I've kind of thought about that recently. I've had a little bit of a dilemma, like, well, how come like the negative stuff comes out like in music, but feels so positive? Now, I'm not talking about, there is negative music. There is that is producing complaining and negativity. That's different. But it's when there's something that's sad that or you just are experiencing this, and like you said, it's a time and place. Like you wouldn't necessarily just talk about that, but why is it that can be such a healing thing when it's put into the song is just like a painting, it's put into this thing and it's stamped as this happened at this time, and this is a story, and now it's like it's a product, and it's product is kind of, it makes it sound less valuable. It's a piece of art that expresses something that happened, that was important to be expressed and released.
Yeah.
I don't know why it is, but when you hear somebody just listening to that, say that certain lyric that just hits you, and it can be really sad. Like Jason Isbell, I've been listening to that guy lately. I don't know if you've heard much of him, but man, it's not this type of stuff I would necessarily listen to. It's kind of folky country, but
Yeah.
that guy's been through a lot, you know,
Yeah.
and he's struggled with a lot of things that he's just very open with in his music. He's, you know, a lot of he's overcome a lot of addictions and depression and lots of things, but his songs, like when you hear a certain lyric said that is maybe the saddest feeling that you've ever felt yourself, and you hear somebody else say that thing, but sing it with just the right melody and in just the right moment and the right mood, and it catches you, it's a healing experience.
Yeah. I think it's a relational thing, you know, to your point. Mm-hmm. It's even though in our culture, it's maybe not, you know, common to just dump our emotions out in our basic interactions. Culturally, music is a safe place for us to communicate those things. And I think when somebody conveys hardship or deep felt emotion through music, the listener doesn't feel as alone in not being able to maybe share, because they relate to wow, that's a really deep, heartfelt pain that's being sung about or conveyed through the instruments. I've felt deep pain in my life. I relate to this. It's like I really do think it's like in some ways it can be like a redemption of loneliness. I'm not trying to get too heady, but it's a connection. Yeah. I think ultimately the reason why music is so powerful, no matter how crazy our world gets and no matter how things change, it's like the universal safe place to share in our struggles, in our victories, and everything in between. And and different types of people, because of their different types of experiences, maybe relate to certain artists or certain genres because those are where they find that connection. Yeah. And I don't know. This is what I refer to in my wandering mind. I refer to this stuff as like the intangibles of music. You know, the things that you can't write down on a staff or in notation. Right. But they reflect what is the communicative nature of music. And I meditate on that a lot. And sometimes I get lost in thought wondering about how that stuff works, but amazing. But it's very real.
Yeah. Very real. Intangible perhaps to us right now with our five senses that we know.
Yeah, man.
But we do feel it. Yeah, you're right. And I think that's actually a great, I think, answer, like the best answer you could possibly give to that. It's just, it's why is saying something that could otherwise be considered a negative or downer thing make you feel so, heal. And I think you're right. It's the connect. It's the fact that it's like, like you, I'm not alone. Yeah. And it's amazing.
I don't think we're designed as human beings to be alone and be isolated. It's one of the reasons why, the whole COVID thing is so devastating below the surface of the obvious things, when you get down into people's emotions and struggles and music, it does offer some form of universal connection. And, maybe it's times like those that music is most important. I don't know, but it's interesting.
I think you're right. I do. And plus we all have more time to do it now. Right?
That's right. Hey, you mentioned earlier about, you moved to South Africa for a couple years.
Yeah.
Talk about that. Like where are you from originally?
I'm from Huntsville, Alabama.
He's from Alabama. How does an Alabama kid end up in South Africa? What took you there?
Well, so I went there because a friend of mine from Nashville introduced me to a girl just like via Facebook that was his friend, because he ended up spending like 6 months out of every year there because he did mission work and he did poetry and a lot of stuff. And he's always trying to hook people up. That's
He's a matchmaker.
He's the matchmaker. So
nice.
yeah, so I made one. Yeah, so I went there with him, or actually I went by myself when he was there, and stayed with him for about a month, and spent time with the girl who's my wife now, who yeah.
There it is.
There it is.
South Africa
that answers the question.
Is where you found your wife. Amazing.
Yeah. And so we got married, and then she was going to move here, but ended up ultimately we knew that was going to happen, but there were certain reasons we decided that it was a good idea for me to move there for a little while first. It was supposed to be maybe 6 months or something like that. It ended up being 1.5 years. And it was really cool. Very different experience.
Did you get married there or in the States?
We got married here in Nashville, and then moved there. Or she already lived there, but I moved there like, I guess 4 days later or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. It was cool. I got to play a lot of music actually, and got to do a lot of different things music wise that were cool. There's some really amazing musicians there.
Wow. And, so were you making a living as a musician when you were there?
It's actually, hang on. There we go. Actually, yes, I was making a living partially from playing. There was I had a church gig that was regular, and I also was teaching singing lessons. I was teaching at a school. I had like 30 students. So between those two things, that was, that's what I was doing.
Wow. Very cool.
It was cool though. Loved it.
Is there anything that you want to share with everyone that is something you've been working on that you're getting ready to come out with, or do you want to draw attention to anything that's out there? Would love to be able to turn people on to what you're up to or what you've been doing.
I have been under the radar. Sorry, yeah, you asked me that a while back, and I got off track.
That's all right.
I've been under the radar for quite a while, because I've been working on, for one thing, I've just been busy. I've got a wife now. We have 2 kids, and just keeping that together. And, that's a
full-time job right there.
Yeah, pretty much. And so most of my music has been me playing freelance for other artists, and keeping bills paid and stuff. But I've been working on something for about 2 years that is it's going to be very different. Musically, it's going to be me. It's going to be my stuff. But it's going to be part of something that's bigger that I'm working on, that I feel like it's a kind of a new direction for me. I've been actually working on writing a couple of books.
Wow.
And and I had any intention of doing that. It was just a whole lot of thoughts and things that were coming to me, and that I realized that I was just wanting to share to myself, that ended up turning into a lot of content. And I said, I think it's supposed to be books. And so I'm going to have an album eventually come out that will either be coming out with a book with it, or I might come out with the book later. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do it all yet. That is
so cool.
And wow. And it's going to be interesting. I've got a few different scenarios of how it could pan out, which, it'll be one of those things where like what happens. It might have to do with like the finances, or just the timing, or the right connections, or whatever it is. I don't know how it's gonna, I don't know the exact layout of it yet, but right now I just feel like I'm supposed to be focusing on content. Just getting it out, just getting the stuff written, getting the books written, getting the music written. And so, I'm still going to be under the radar for probably a little while. One thing that I am doing is that we just decided in the past couple of weeks. I'm going to have my friend Sid Blanchard. She does, Sid. She's been over here helping my wife. My wife's doing a cooking show. She just started doing Sid's in it, and she's doing a lot of new cool stuff too.
Awesome.
And so we've been talking a lot and hanging out a lot, and they kind of convinced me to start doing some live videos, or not live videos, but just recorded videos, just me doing my acoustic stuff and kind of making them into a thing and trying to put them out maybe at least once a week. And so I said, well, I need to brush up on actual live performance. It's been a minute since I've done just guitar and vocal.
Sure.
And I really want to do some of this new stuff. So I said, give me a couple of months. So I'm looking at in March.
Okay.
Or no, sorry, maybe April.
Okay.
To start doing a weekly thing, to put out a video a week and doing that. And again, I'll put some old stuff in there, but I want to do some new stuff. And so it'll be a challenge for me, just to be willing to put out things acoustically that I have a big vision production wise for in my head, because I've got kind of this thing where I don't like anybody to hear it at all till it sounds like exactly like I was talking about earlier, exactly what I wanted, exactly what I don't want anybody to hear it. So for me, it's a little bit of a different thing to do that, to come out and just do it on an acoustic guitar and say, this is here's the song. So the song is going to have to, the content's going to have to be good, and the performance is going to have to be at least good enough for me to feel like it carries the song without, hearing the whole thing. So it's a little bit of an exciting challenge for me to do that. So but that's right great. Now that's where I'm at. I'm going to plan on doing that for maybe a year. And then hopefully after that, this album will start getting recorded in pieces, and it'll be
nice, man. I look forward to that. Can't wait to hear it. How can, if someone wants to hire you or check out, your music, what's the best way for people to reach out to you, get in touch with you, see what you're up to? What's the best way?
I think my Instagram is probably the thing where if people are gonna message me, it's Aaron Cox Music, and I do a lot of direct messages and stuff on Instagram like that.
Cool.
And then, you can email me at aaroncoxmusic@gmail.com also. Anybody wants to hire somebody to do drums or anything right now, I am excited about making a living.
Cool. Aren't we all? Well, Aaron, I can't thank you enough for doing this. It's been so great to talk with you and catch up with you. I feel like I haven't seen you forever. We need to connect very soon. But thank you so much for all your inspiration, all your gracious comments regarding the record. And man, I wish you and your family all the best. And just looking forward to making music with you again.
Likewise. Yeah, soon. Awesome, bud. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for letting me be a part and for doing this. And again, let me just reiterate, the album is awesome. Oh,
bless you, man.
It's awesome. And it's great to hear you singing all those lead vocals. Actually, that's the one thing that's the one reason that I'm like, I'm kind of glad we didn't do it as much of collaboration as maybe we were hoping to have time to do, because maybe it's what pushed you to be able to get out there and sing. And I am really, really glad that happened.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
It's great. Yeah, you sound awesome. So thanks again.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, everybody, thank you for checking out another episode, and we will see you in the next video. Take care. God bless.